Today we're talking about teen verse, understanding the world of teenagers. It's a different world in their heads. It's also a very different world, that they're running.
Yeah, definitely. It's not only a different world in their heads, but it's actually a different world, like
on the ground.
On the ground. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think what's important to understand is that teenagers aren't big children, and neither are they small adults. If you treat them as big children or small adults, then you're going to have a problem. You have to understand them as a world of their own. And this is true not only in Zimbabwe, but different parts of the world. They've got their own culture, their own language, rules, dressing, all of that. So it's something that you need to study and understand if you are to work with them and be able to influence them. Otherwise, you're always going to be having battles with them, and having battles with teenagers doesn't help, because at the end of the day, the teenagers are going to be frustrated, and you as an adult are also going to be frustrated. And then at the end of the day, nobody wins between the two of you. So because you're an adult, you're the older one, it's up to you to actually try and understand their world and then see how best you can come into it and be able to influence. So first of all, I'm going to just explain some things that we need to understand about teenagers, or about the world of teenagers. And then after that, we can talk about what we can do to influence them. Sometimes it's difficult to understand a teenage, because back in the day, that world didn't quite exist the way it now exists for those reasons. So back in the day, somebody would move straight from maybe grade 7 and starts working. So at the time where they were supposed to be a teenager, they're now an adult and they're already living independently. Whereas in this day and age, somebody gets into teenage when they're still under their parents' house, under their parents' roof. So now they're trying to be an adult, they're trying to be independent, yet you're still under someone. So then there's clashes. But back in the day, you wouldn't have those clashes, because the moment somebody gets into teenage, they now come out of their house and then they become their own person. So the first thing, I think I've already mentioned that, and it's important to get it into your head. Teenagers aren't big children, neither are they small adults. They're a unique demographic on their own. And then teenage as a period of many firsts. This is the time when adolescents start experiencing many things for the first time, be they sexual feelings. So they're going to start having crushes. Maybe they're going to start dating, if it's heartbreaks and all. This is the time that is going to start. Also, a lot of times this is the time where they start high school. This is the time where there are a lot of physical changes and they're experiencing many things for the first time. So because they've got many of this first, they're inexperienced and they're bound to make a lot of mistakes. So it's a period and a time when they need mentorship, when they need somebody to be guiding them, but they don't feel that way. They don't know that way. They want to be on their own. And in being on their own, the mistakes are now amplified. They become bigger. So there has to be a way for us as adults to actually communicate to them and help them understand and see that we want to be close to you for your own good. We don't want to be close to you so that we jeopardize your independence, but we actually want to be close to you so that we can help you. And then the next thing is that it's a time to develop personal identities. So when you're a child, you don't have like a personal identity. In some sense, you are seen under the shadow of your mom or your dad. So what you call your values are actually your parents' values. But then when you reach this time when you're a teenager, you're now trying to think seriously about your own life and form your own values and form your own identity. And in the process, the battles then come, the arguments then come. Because imagine you're a parent, you've been a parent for the past 12 years, and then for the first time, this little person you raised is now arguing with you, is now thinking what you think or what you believe in, and they know better. Sometimes it's funny because I work with kids a lot of times. You talk to this grade 5, not even a grade 5, a 5-year-old, and they're telling you about things that happened at school. Then there's like saying, the problem is that our teacher didn't understand. She's too big-headed. And you're like, you're
what
5.
Are you saying?
You're 5. And
Yes.
doesn't understand. So that can be hard.
Because I guess it can be because I think it's also that stage where they think they know and they want their autonomy.
Yeah.
But then, as you said, it's tricky because you're still being governed, you're still under someone's roof, but then
Yeah.
you need the autonomy and how to go about that. Yeah.
And I also think the biggest problem in life, not only for teenagers but for everyone, is we don't always know what we don't know. So when you're
that's
so
true.
when you're in that
Wow, we don't
phase.
always know what we don't know.
yeah,
That's true.
so you'll be thinking you're right, and
Eish.
yeah, and when you then realize that I didn't know, thus not many are humble enough to then admit, "Ish, I'm sorry. At that time, I didn't know. I was wrong." So many will just like continue their lives as if nothing happened. Then the next thing that we need to understand about teenagers is that they tend to exaggerate their feelings. So be they feelings of happiness, sadness, stress, they tend to be exaggerated. And it's not like they're doing this on purpose, but they actually feel them in that exaggerated form.
So everything is blown out of proportion.
Yeah, it's blown out of proportion.
Okay.
So because it's just a period that they're at, and sometimes they're having these feelings for the first time. So imagine you're crashing. This is your first time. You've never had experience with this, so you think the whole world starts and ends on your crash. So everything is centered on them. So that also is a problem. And what I would say to adults is that there's a phrase that I love, and the phrase is, "Don't kick somebody who's already on the ground." So sometimes teens do something that's bad and they're feeling guilty, or they are struggling with their confidence and they know that. So you don't make the situation better by then saying to them, "Yo, no confidence, you I'm not to chaita say university or chi." That the person is already on the ground. So by kicking them, you're actually making it harder for them to get up. If you want them to get up, then you need to like lift them up rather than actually kicking them. So I don't know what the word for reverse affirmation is. Affirming is in the positive, right?
Yes, it is.
I don't know what the negative word would be, but that's what a lot of
Let's look
people
it up.
do. And in doing that, they think they're actually motivating somebody to be better. By doing that, you're actually like putting them down, and they will struggle to.
I think
come up
for
off the
parents, the ones that raised that generation, to them, affirming someone was actually saying like the opposite. To try
Yeah, the
to.
opposite.
I forgot like they're encouraging, but then saying, "Oh, wakutokundwana ningika." But then it's not. It's discouraging.
Yeah, it is discouraging, and I find it hard. I find that many adults find it hard to objectively look at their methods. So, for example, you often hear people would say, "Machedo aerovastatic," and we tend out to be great people in life. And even even a murderer would say that he's in jail. Arukutara ninya nivamwe nyaya, like fellow inmates. In that state, you'd say, "Isusu tairowa." That's why we turned out the way we are. And like, what are you? So sometimes we don't even realize what we've become. Did it make us better people or not? Because what happens is when somebody is not yet a teenager, you can use fear, and they will not do what they wanted to do because they are afraid. But that hasn't killed the curiosity in them. They still want to do it. The only reason why they haven't done it is because they're afraid. So in your presence, they will not do that thing. And then you're gone, you're out, or now they have reached a level of independence. They'll still become that person that they wanted to be at that point. Pamaifunga kuti zvakashanda, hazvina kushanda. They were only like afraid. So what you need to do is to actually make an impact from within, so that outside that negative motivation, they still can go on to do the right thing that you want them to be doing.
Not out of fear,
Yeah,
but then
not
out of
fear.
knowing what is the right thing. Those are the principles that raised me. Yeah, true.
And then friendships matter a lot. This is the reason why teenagers are vulnerable to peer pressure, because they want to belong to a certain social group. They want to be part of cliques. What other people think about them matters. They have this fear of missing out. So friendships are very important to them. This is why it's important from a tender age that you actually teach your children to choose the right friends, because it's something that we are never taught. we make friends by just being around people. So kana chikira tese bhazi chienda kuchikoro, that is my friend. If we are in the same class, that is my friend. That's how we make friends when we are young. And nobody actually tells us that we have to look at things beyond just those common ground. We need to think about values. We need to think about what they believe. We need to think about who they are as people. So it's important to teach them so that when they get into teenage, they already have good friends. Yes, they will experience peer pressure, but then the peer pressure is going to be positive. Still talking about why and how friendships matter to teenagers, I've realized that teenagers are the only demographic that actually uses social media for its original intended purpose. So social media is called social media for a purpose. It's for social issues and all. But if you look at us adults, no ishandisa for business, no ishandisa for other serious stuff. So it's not like social. Yeah, it's just social in name, but we actually use it for important stuff. But teenagers
Which
use
is
it. Like
Yeah.
social. It's just like social. Anyway, so given that, maybe let me talk a little more about
Before you do that, if you're just tuning in, it is teenzim.com with Coach Tafadzwa. We're also live on Facebook talking about Teenverse, understanding the world of teenagers. Got a message is saying, true that most parents restricted us from expressing our emotions. We were actually afraid to speak out, but now that I am independent, I do confront them. I don't allow anyone to tremble upon my emotions. So that's a feedback that you can continue, Coach.
Yes. So like I said before, I'll now look at what we can actually do to influence them, given what I've said. So the first thing is, when somebody has now become a teenager, as much as you can, avoid being confrontational. Rather, ask curious questions to understand where they're coming from. So a lot of people would think that if you're doing that, it means you are putting away your authority as an adult or as a parent. But what you need to understand is the basis or the foundation of any solution is the truth. Without the truth, you can't find solutions to problems. So if you're confrontational, the teenagers are likely not going to tell the truth. And when they lie, you're going to try and make out a solution based on that lie. So whatever it is you're building as kushanda, because it's not premised on the truth. So it's important to get the truth from teenagers, and you can only do that by asking curious questions and trying to understand them. I think you can understand people better when you start by admitting that you don't understand them and you actually want to learn from them. Then the next thing is start teaching values early, even before adolescence, because at that time kids are very impressionable. They just absorb everything that you teach them. They don't question your authority or question things as much. So you want them to have already gotten the foundation, so that by the time they're now arguing and they are trying to make their own identity, they are making it based on what you've already put inside them when they were young. Imagine if somebody was brought up in a religious family and taught strictly, and you may try to explain whatever, that is what they have been taught and it's already in them and they don't question it anymore. But mukazoda kutanga kuzviunza later on, that can be a problem. So it's important to teach values early and also to clarify your values. You know, a lot of times people don't even know what they value. They only know it when a teenager makes a mistake and now they say, no, but what do you want? You've never told me about what you want. What are your values concerning marriage, sexuality, money, religion, and all of that? Yeah. So it's important to clarify. And then
I guess, as parents, most parents, they never have this conversation, these conversations with their kids, about values, to actually talk about it.
Yeah.
And until Mwana aita something opposite, and then, you're bringing them to book to say, why did you do that?
Yeah, a conversation
with
themselves.
Yeah.
What do I really believe?
Yes.
And the other thing,
I guess it starts from there.
Yeah, it starts from there. You have conversations with yourself, and you're like, no, those are my values. And then be the example. Because
and do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, there's something interesting that I observed recently working with little kids. So a kid would be maybe in the sandbox, right? And they're busy making a castle or whatever. And then it's time for lunch. And then I go to them and I call them. They're like, oh, come, it's now time to eat. And then they'll be like, wait, there's something I just need to finish. And you're thinking, what are they finishing? But to them, it's important because they've learned from parents that when they want the parent's attention, the parent is going to say, wait a minute, I'm still cooking or I'm still doing this at all. So this is what they've also like learned to do. Okay, so when I'm cold and I'm doing something that's important to me, I wait a little bit. So this is how kids learn. And if you are angry and then you swear, you hit or whatever, this is what the kids will also do. They'll think, okay, that's what's supposed to be done.
Thank you so much, Coach Tafadzwa. How can people get in touch with you?
My WhatsApp number is 0773 606 728. 0773 606 728. And if you're a parent, you want to be added to our WhatsApp group, you simply send your name and your child's name to that number and I'll add it to you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. Always empowering sessions with Coach Tafadzwa. Check your time with mine, Star FM, 11 o'clock. Time for the